Can you follow me on TikTok?
Here we are again, faced head-on with a huge opportunity that the UFC should be seizing. Instead, they're too busy dilly-dallying with this and that. UFC Georgia. This could be one of the biggest cards of the year, bro. And now that we have not one, but two Georgian champions, the idea seems almost unthinkable not to carry out. Especially someone like Dana White, who loves his money. With the new addition of these two Georgian champs, I'm sure there've been, and there will be, so many new MMA fans from Georgia, right? And we've seen the UFC fumble big opportunities like this in the past. Of course, I'm talking about when the three African kings were in full power. The UFC never went to Africa, man, and obviously, you know, Ngannou got bloody kicked out of the UFC. Kamaru lost the belt, and so did Adesanya, so it was too late by then. And it's not even like going to Georgia is like traveling to a whole new place in the world that the UFC have never been to. Literally a few months ago, they went to Baku in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan is literally right next to Georgia, and plus there's only like one or two Azerbaijanis in the UFC, one of them being a, you know, quite a big UFC lightweight contender, and the other guy being some random guy that just pulled out the depths of the streets or something, bro. Look, man, I'll even make it easier for them. This is a concept card that I've made for a Georgian pay-per-view, and I'm telling you guys, they should do this before it gets too late. Luckily for them, the two current Georgian champions are like two of the best champions of all time, but as they say, it's better to do things sooner rather than later. So this pay-per-view can be held in the Boris Paicadze Dynamo Arena in the heart of Tbilisi, Georgia. The card I'm about to say, you know, maybe it's not the most realistic because there are quite a lot of big fights on it, but I'm just saying, like, these are some examples of fights that could be on this card. Let's get straight into it. The first fight on this card, on the early prelims, we have Nazim Sadykhov versus Elvis Brenner. Both of these guys, electric, obviously taking place in the lightweight division. Elvis Brenner has a lot of finishes, same with Nazim Sadykhov. And obviously Nazim Sadykhov, he did feature on the Azerbaijan card because he is from Azerbaijan. Obviously Azerbaijan is right next to Georgia, so I'm sure he'd love to feature on this card. And yeah, it's just a pretty good fight to start off the night. Next up, I'm gonna go for Ibo Aslan versus Rodolfo Bellato. Both of these guys are actually fighting in the Perth Fight Night on September 27th. And I see Ibo Aslan winning against Justin Tafa, and I see Rodolfo Bellato losing against Navajo Sterling. So I think this is a great fight to make. Obviously, both the guys basically have only finishes. Ibo Aslan, 14 wins, 14 KOs. Rodolfo Bellato, 12 wins, 11 finishes. So definitely probably a guaranteed finish, I would say. And for the final fight on the early prelims, you have to have him in this card for sure. Guram Kutateladze, one of the Georgian MMA fighters that trains with Ilya and Marab and stuff, versus Zel Huber. Obviously, we saw recently Zel Huber lost to Johnson, which wasn't exactly a great loss to have, but I think this would be a suitable fight because obviously he's coming off of that loss, and Guram Kutateladze is also coming off a loss. He hasn't really been looking great recently, but you have to have him on this card, and you kind of still want a big name matchup. Zel Huber obviously has taken place in some great fights, so I'm sure this will be a big name fight. People will be watching it. Next up, to kick off the prelims, we have Bryce Mitchell versus Alexandre Topuria. Obviously Topuria's younger brother, maybe his older brother, I'm not sure, but obviously it's Topuria's brother. Topuria, he's had one fight within the UFC, and he showcased some real good skill. Bryce Mitchell obviously just debuted at bantamweight, and he beat Said Nurmagomedov. I wouldn't mind seeing maybe Topuria versus Said Nurmagomedov just to get that, you know, that one step before he has a big name fight. But obviously he's fighting in his home country. You have to give him a kind of big fight. And Bryce Mitchell, he's definitely a big name, so I would say this is a good fight to have. Next up, of course, on a Georgia pay-per-view, you have to have Giga Chikadze. He's obviously from Georgia, and he's number 15 ranked, so that's why he is kind of higher up on the card than some of the other fights. And I'm gonna say him against Haider Emil. I think Haider Emil deserves it over a win against Gomis, which he had in his last fight. And I think it's a winnable fight for Chikadze for sure. And obviously, we want him to win in front of the Georgian crowd, but it's still someone that's really skilled in Haider Emil. And for the prelim headliner, you want a big fight, you want a statement to be made. So that's why I've put Derek Lewis versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. I would say a guaranteed KO. Obviously, Cortez Acosta just lost recently against Pavlovich pretty easily, and Derek Lewis, he has called out Waldo Cortez Acosta, so I think this will be a good fight, and I think Derek Lewis could genuinely get the KO in this fight. Opening this main card is none other than Roman Dolidze. Of course, he is Georgian, so he has to be, I guess, on the main card. I mean, I don't really think you can put him any lower. And then I've got him versus Roman Kopylov, who is from Russia, which is right next door. So yeah, man, I think this will be a good fight. Obviously, both coming off of losses, both strikers, so at least that's one thing that we can guarantee this is going to be a pretty entertaining fight. And I think Kopylov gets it done, to be honest, but it's still a realistic matchup. Next up, I have Fiziev versus Rufi. Obviously, like I said earlier, Fiziev is Azerbaijani, which is right next door, so I think he should be on this card. And obviously, Rufi, he's one of the most entertaining strikers. He will fight soon against Benoit Saint-Denis. So depending on whether he wins or loses that fight, I think this will be a really good matchup to have between two strikers. This is definitely going to be a very entertaining striking matchup. Next up, I do think you have to have Aljo on this card. Obviously, I think he should be fighting with his Georgian friend Merab. So I've got Aljo versus Yair Rodriguez. I think this is the most logical next step forward for Aljamain Sterling. Of course, Yair Rodriguez is like number 3 ranked, and he's quite close to a title shot. So I think if Aljo can win this fight, he'll get a title shot. If Yair can win this fight, he'll get a title shot. So I think this is definitely a logical and realistic fight that should and could take place on this card. Now it's time for that featured fight on the card. We have to have one WMMA fight, guys. I'm sorry. But this one is a fairly decent one. Valentina Shevchenko versus Natalia Silva. Obviously, Natalia Silva is number 1 ranked after beating Alexa Grasso. And obviously, Shevchenko, she is booked against Zhang Weili. So if she can win that and she decides to defend, then I think this is the fight that makes sense. Obviously, she is from Kyrgyzstan, I think it is. So I guess that's kind of close, and I think this does make kind of a bit of sense. Next up on that co-main event, of course, we have to have Merab Dvalishvili. And I've paired him up against the winner of Bautista versus Umar Nurmagomedov, of course. Whoever wins that fight, obviously that fight is coming up soon in a fight night or something. So whoever wins that, they should get a shot at the title. I think it probably would be Umar that wins this fight. But whoever it is, just pair him up against Merab. That's a good fight. And finally, on that main event, of course, you guys guessed it, Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan. Fun fact, one little Google search will tell you that Arman Tsarukyan was actually born in Georgia, which is interesting. Obviously, he reps the Armenia flag. He probably lives and trains out of Armenia, but he was born in Georgia, so that's kind of something that can maybe be used in the press conference or something like that. But yeah, man, obviously there was no other fight that could be the main event for this. Ilia Topuria, obviously he reps that Georgia flag as well as Spain, but Georgia's still there. So yeah, man, this would be an amazing main event. Obviously, one of the most anticipated title fights in the UFC right now. I don't know if it's ever going to bloody happen, because Ilya's kind of ducking Arman, I can't lie, which is something that I would not expect from Ilia, but it is what it is. I think this would be a great main event for UFC Georgia, and that's about it. So you guys let me know your thoughts on a potential pay-per-view in Georgia. Like I said, the UFC are probably never going to do it. They're going to flipping drop the opportunity again, drop the bag of money. I mean, that's what they're after, right? Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Please do like, comment, share, subscribe. Turn on that post notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys next time. Safe.